Hi guys, good morning. And today, so first a heads up if I am audible, everyone.
Yes.
Okay, cool,
Yes, yes.
fine. So before we start today's class, we'll be continuing with the module that we left off last day. So actually, I need to address a couple of questions that we have received last day regarding the course itself. And the questions were like if it was adhering to the 𝐒𝐔 security plus certification syllabus and so on. So yeah, it is this entire course is adhering to the 𝐒𝐔 and 𝐏𝐥𝐞𝐚 security plus certification syllabus, right? And regarding any lab access that is required for the course, we are not providing a lab platform as per se. But what you'll be doing in this course is you'll be creating your own labs using virtual machines. You will be downloading labs from OneHub, and to create a baseline, because not everyone's system is the same, we'll be doing our labs on TryHackMe as well, so that we are, on a unified platform at some points. But yeah, we'll be creating our own hacking labs and our own penetration testing platform. So yeah, that is the clarification that I needed to give before we started. Yeah. So yeah, we start with the reconnaissance phase. So we've studied about the hacking cycle, the kill chain and things like that. Now we come into the steps of hacking. So the initial steps of hacking, yes. The initial steps of hacking is recon, scanning, gaining access, maintaining access, and covering tracks. Right? So we'll be covering all of this in detail. So starting with the first phase, reconnaissance. Reconnaissance is referring to the preparatory phase. So this is the part where we ideally don't interact with the target, right? Because we don't want ourselves as penetration testers to be, uh, you, you know, uh, to be blacklisted by the company's firewall, by the organization's intrusion detection system, intrusion prevention system. We don't want that initially. So reconnaissance is the phase that we usually do in the passive mode, but there's also an active mode. So let's see what we are trying to get here. Sorry for that. Yeah. This information could be the future point of return noted for ease of entry of an attack when more about the target is known on a broad scale, right? So you'll get an idea about the two types called passive and active. Generally, whenever we talk about any hacking phase or any hacking cycle, usually the broader aspect of differentiation between that is a passive and active. Right? There are two methods. So in passive, you don't interact with the target. In active, you have direct interaction with the target. Now, this is a preparatory phase where we gain information about the target, right? So passive reconnaissance involves acquiring information without directly interacting with the target. For example, searching public records, releases, right? Going to Wayback Machine to check how the website was built, going through builtwith.com to see which kind of programming languages or content management system this particular website is using, going to Whois in order to find domain name and IP address related information, right? These are all passive reconnaissance, that is gathering data that is already publicly available on the internet, right? Or open source intelligence, as we call it, OSINT. Active reconnaissance. Active reconnaissance involves directly interacting with the target, such as telephone calls, help desk, technical department, right? Usually, sorry for that. I'm a little under the weather. Yeah. So For active reconnaissance, directly interacting with the target by any means, right? So people actually call help desk for this particular organization. Or for example, let's just say for this entire scenario that we are going to cover for the hacking phases, we are gonna take a e-commerce website. Okay. So let's just say, no, cancel. Let's just say we have an e-commerce website. That e-commerce website will have a user login, right? Just for the sake of it, we are just listing down some of the functionalities. Listing page, right? User login, listing page, cart, payments, right? These are all of the things that an e-commerce website will have. So now what do we do in active reconnaissance? We call this e-commerce website up, either pretending to be a user or pretending to be a seller on that particular e-commerce platform and ask questions, right? So saying that, hey, I am facing this error on login. Can you tell me what kind of logging methods are used, or what kind of technical methods are used, or something like that? Cart, you can ask about logics. Payments, you can ask about integration of payments, right? What are the partners and what are like, if you gain access to any information that is available with them through an active channel like a telephone call, you that is considered to be an active reconnaissance where you are directly interacting with the target. Next comes scanning. Scanning is the pre-attack phase where it scans the entire network for specific information based on information gathered during the phase of reconnaissance. Now, the main thing scanning leverages in the main data that scanning leverages in from the reconnaissance phase is the IP address, right? So let's say, for example, um, what should we go through? Okay, let's just say I'll fire up my virtual machine to keep it safe. Just give me a moment while I fire up the virtual machine. So this is a deliberately vulnerable virtual machine. Okay, till then, if you have any questions from the previous class or anything that you have up until now, you can just unmute yourself and let me know about it, or let me know about it on chat.
I'm good, Darren. No
Okay,
questions as of now.
cool. So let's just say that we have found out the IP address of this machine, which was metasploitable tool. Let's just assume that this was a legitimate website, right? And we have found out the IP address, right? But if you are confused about how do we find the IP addresses, say ilovepdf.com, right? For an example, if I just copy this, I go to my terminal, and everyone should be aware about a term called ping, right? Ping is a command line utility which essentially sends a data packet to the particular website and expects a response in return, right? The response can be anything. It can be accepted, it can be logged in, whatever the response might be. If the response is an active response, right? Until and unless it is rejected, it will show me that the data is getting returned, right? So if I type in ilovepdf.com, see, the first thing that I see, ping I love PDF. Sorry, need to stop that. Yeah. Ping I love PDF. 104.20.1.94, right? This is the IP address for this website. It's as easy as finding this out. Okay. If you would require extra information about this entire IP address, you can simply go on to your browser, type in whois, go to whois.com, enter your domain here, and you'll get the rest of the information. It's hosted by GoDaddy. It has these name servers. This is the registered contact, administrative contact, technical contact, and so on, right? So you get an idea about how easy this is. Now, we'll assume that we have received all of this information for this vulnerable website that I have spun up on my virtual machine, right? The next part will be scanning. Okay. So going back here. So port scanners. Scanning can include the use of dialers, port scanners, network mappers, ping tools, vulnerability scanners, right? The main tool that we are going to use in the course as well is called Nmap, right? If you are on Windows, you can install Nmap. I prefer turning the Windows feature, Windows subsystem for Linux on in this case. But if you are, not willing to do that, you can download a utility called ZenMap, which is the user interface for Nmap. However, I do not suggest using a UI-based application because it just helps you in your cybersecurity journey if you keep using the command line. And that is the utility that I want you to use, because that is something like that you should not be judged on, but you are actually given points on that if you are very familiar with Linux commands, Linux, the terminal and things like that. Okay, so now we will be scanning these networks, right? So a simple scan, so you don't have to worry about the syntax. Scanning is a separate module in itself in which we'll be deep diving into every single command. Let's just say I want to do a port scan, right? And followed by the IP address. I hit enter. Ah, sorry. Just stopping screen share for a while to enter my password. Yeah. So nmap hyphen small s capital S for a SYN scan, followed by the IP address. So we'll wait to nmap to process this. So what is essentially going to happen is it is going to show us open ports. Open ports are nothing but communication channels inside of a server that are running different services such as SSH, FTP. FTP is file transfer protocol on port number 21. So we know that this particular port is open. It is running FTP. There are a lot of things that can go on from a scanning report, right? There are a lot of methods that we can think about as penetration testers. So port number 21 is using FTP. Now we know that this server is using file transfer protocol. That means that, there are files that are being uploaded to this server using FTP, right? Now, as penetration testers, we know FTP is not a secured protocol in the sense that FTP data is transferred in plain text, right? It is not encrypted. Okay. So let just a quick heads up on what I mean. Uh Say this one itself. Yeah. What is the first thing that you see? I can't zoom in on the URL bar, sorry for that, but what is the first thing that you see? I'll paste it on chat. If someone is given this, if someone gives you this URL, right?
It is having HTTPS, which is means that it would be secured.
Right. So how is it secured? Like, what is the method that it's using for security?
Mm,
They have used certificate, CA certificate.
Correct. Yeah. So So they have used an SSL certificate to be exact, but it should not be SSL, it should be TLS now. But yeah, whatever. They are using an encrypted channel, right? So this is the first line of defense that we know about when we are browsing on the internet, that my communication from my browser to the server that this website is hosted on is encrypted, right? So FTP transfers this data on plain text, right? Now I can access FTP by simply running Wireshark and capturing data that people are using. Like capture the data for anything coming to the server using the FTP port, right? Because it is in plain text, I can capture passwords, I can capture usernames, I can capture data, whatever it might be. Second approach, what if this is an FTP port and it is open? Most of the FTP services have a brute force vulnerability where I can brute force its username and password and I can get into the server. Well and good. So these are the things that we think about whenever we get a scanning report, right? And some of the times these services might not be listed as well. The main thing that we look for then is common ports. So port number 22 runs SSH, port number 23 runs Telnet, port number uh, 80 runs HTTP, 443 runs HTTPS, 3306 runs MySQL. So anything of that sort we come across and we just assume that it is the default service that is running. Does not mean that the service port cannot be changed. You can even run MySQL for on any port except for 3306, but usually that is not done because that is the baseline that the industry has set, right? Now we can extract information from that, such as open ports, as we just saw in the scan, live machines, port statuses, OS details, device type, system uptime, and everything of that sort. Then comes the actual hacking part, as we call it, and that is gaining access. Gaining access is referring to the point where the attacker obtains access to the operating system or application on the target computer or the network. Right? The attacker can gain access at the operating system, application, or network level. So there are three entry points for an attacker right here. One is the operating system, using operating system vulnerabilities, an application using all of these that we saw, services that are running for the application, and on the network level as well, where we connect to the network or the local area network for the machine that we are trying to access. The attacker can escalate privileges to obtain complete control of the system. In this process, the target's connected intermediate systems are also compromised, right? So what did we see here? Right. So the reason that I, stopped sharing my screen, right? So that is because I had to enter my password to go into something called root, right? So if I type in who am I, it says root. Root in Linux language is nothing but the administrator that you use in Windows, right? So administrator has a different set of privileges. If you want to delete a file from the C drive, you will require administrative privileges. Similarly, if you want to delete a file on Linux or run a scan that requires privileges, you have to be root. Now, usually what happens is whenever a computer is allocated to you in an organization, it's given to you in the least privilege configuration, in the sense that you are not administrator of your computer, right? You are just a user that has been configured for you, and you have been given access to all of the applications that you require. But you cannot, install an application without the administrator's permission. You cannot delete an application without the administrator's permission. You cannot modify things in your computer. That is because you do not have the authority to change that particular thing. Now, in this scenario, in your laptop, if someone gets an access to your computer, right? he won't get access, he or she won't get access as a root user or as an administrative user. They will get access as you. So say, the user that they will be getting access is Arun, right? Now what they have to do is escalate their privileges. There are different scripts that can be used in order to exploit vulnerabilities in the Windows operating system that change you from the user to the administrative user, right? Why I'm specifically saying Windows application or Windows operating system is because it's like relatively easier on Windows. There are a lot of hardenings that we can do on Linux, a lot of customization, provided that it's done properly. Else, Linux is as vulnerable as Windows itself. Fourth is the actual purpose that we are gaining access to the system: password cracking, buffer overflows, denial of service, session hijacking. These are all of the things that we will be doing in order to ultimately gain data or gain access to the system. Maintaining access. So let's just say, for a scenario, you have installed a malware on the system, right? So I would require this actually. Yeah. So you have installed a malware on the system, and every single day you're okay. By the way, uh, the process of hacking, right? Anything that we are studying right now is not exactly a process that is completed in a day or in hours or something like that. It takes months to complete, right? So all of this hacking phase, scanning phase, what happens is if you're scanning a network, for example, if you scan at a particular rate, say Nmap is capable of sending, thousands of requests at the same time in order to scan a network. If you are sending even say 300 requests per second, so that would be flagged as the indicator of compromise on the intrusion detection system, and your IP would be blocked, right? So in order to avoid that, scans are made very, very slow, right? As to not be detected by any kind of softwares that are preventing you from scanning that particular system. So this entire process of recon, gaining access, maintaining, gaining access, scanning. These takes months at a time. This is what we call advanced persistent threats. Right? So for this example, let's just say that we have installed a malware on a system, which is giving us access to the system. We are stealing data. We are having a good day. But at the end of the day, what this user does not know that his computer is being affected by a malware. What this user does is shuts his computer down and leaves the office, right? Now, whenever he shuts his computer down, that means that your malware connection is also broken, right? What do you need to ensure is whenever he boots his computer up, you have to run the malware once again because it is not capable of running itself, right? You have to run the malware once again so that you have that continued access. So what do you do in that case? You you take a script, you form the bash file and put it in the boot folder of the operating system, right? Now, whenever a server boots up, the boot folder is the part, or the startup script is the part where what is the part that it executes at boot up, right? So it is entry on Linux and it is startup on Windows, right? These are the folders that execute scripts whenever a Windows computer starts up, right? If you are using applications like Discord, right? So you will see that whenever you boot your Windows laptop up, Discord automatically starts, right? Even WhatsApp web is capable of WhatsApp is capable of doing that, right? So that is done by the startup script. So whenever your computer boots up, the startup script tells WhatsApp or tells Discord to run its application. So we add a script there that tells the malware to run itself whenever a new system is booted up. And that is maintaining access. So maintaining access refers to the phase where the attacker tries to retain the ownership of the system, right? They might install backdoors, rootkits, trojans. Attackers can upload or download or manipulate data, application, and configuration on the own system by maintaining access. If you gain access and you start taking a data out, and one fine day, not one fine day, 1 minute, the connection is broken, that is like game over for you, and you have to start it all over again, right? So maintaining access is the first thing that we do before we start with any kind of malicious activity. Attackers use the compromised system to launch further attacks as well. So if I have compromised a system, say I have compromised a system for another user, right? So what will I do the next time is, if I want to hack another user, I will be launching attack from the computer of the user that I have already hacked into, right? So that if this particular user that I'm trying to hack now gets to know about my activity and reports it, the IP address that is going to show on their logs is going to be the IP address of the computer that I've already hacked, right? This is a proxy connection, as we call it, right? Usually, if these scenarios are not available, that I have already hacked into a system and then I am hacking another system, usually we do it internally. We use something called proxy chaining, where we set up servers ourselves, and relay our traffic through these servers, so that ultimately when the victim checks its logs, it sees a very different IP address than what I am currently using. So I am basically untraceable at this point of time. Okay. Okay, we'll just complete this slide, and then we'll take any questions if there are any. So clearing tracks. So we know that all of this data, all of the things that we are doing, right? All of these commands, all of these gaining access, even logging in into this machine, what user have I used in order to log in into this machine, right? These are things that are logged. Logged in the sense, I'll just show you. In Linux, it is stored inside of cd/var cd log ls. Yeah. So these are all log files, right? Mac changer log. Let's see what the Mac changer log one is. We'll use nano. Nano is a command line text editor. Mac changer.log. See, disabled. So this is logging all of the times that I have disabled this service, right? So you know that each and every activity, this was just one example, but each and every activity, starting from login, all of the services running, SSH access, encrypted channel access, everything is noted on your system in the form of logs, right? At the end of the day, what is happening, if I am a malicious actor and I have hacked into your system, and you get to know that I have hacked into your system, the first thing that you are going to check are the logs, right? Who has accessed my computer, right? So the first thing that we do whenever we enter a system, whenever we gain access to a system, is turn logging off. Okay. There are a lot of methods to turn logging off that we will be covering in the clearing tracks phase itself. That's a separate module in itself. But yeah, so we turn logging off and then we start our work. Now, either we turn logging off or we delete the logs completely for the time that we have been on the system. Say I've hacked in at 1 a.m. in the morning and I completed my hack up until 3 a.m. So I delete the logs from 12:30 a.m. to 3:30 a.m., right? To be safe. So that is what we use. Clearing tracks refers to the activities carried out by an attacker to hide malicious acts. The attacker's intentions include obtaining continuing access to the victim system, remaining unnoticed, and deleting evidence that might lead to the prosecution. The attacker overwrites the server and application logs to avoid suspicion. This is just one method discussed over here, overwriting. They can also disable it. They can also delete it. Okay. We have a question on chat. How do we install malware on the server? See, Now, the approach that I am talking about is the actual hacking terminology approach where you gain access to a system, and then you when you gain access to a system, essentially what you have is, just a sec. Yeah. Essentially what you have is this. Okay, a command line, right? Now, the main way that we install malware on a system that we have already gained access to is, say, just a sec. Uh, See, so what did I do here? I have a PDF hosted somewhere, right? This is a public PDF that I have got it here. Shisha, quickly, unmute yourself. Thanks. Cool. So this is a PDF that is hosted somewhere on the internet, right? For an example, what did I do here? I used the wget utility on Linux to download it on my system, right? Now let's just assume that this was a system that I have hacked into. This is the command line that I have, and this hosted PDF is a malware that I have hosted on a particular server, right? All I need to do is wget this, execute it on the system, and the malware is installed. Now, this is a very, robust approach at the same point of time. What usually is done in order for, computers to be affected by malware is sending links. Like, people click on links which download things onto your system. People click on malicious websites, right? Uh, a lot of ads saying that 80% off, 90% off, right? So these are clickbait ads that actually install a malware on your system at the end of the day. Okay. So these are the things that are used in order to install malware. Now, if you install, the thing is, if you install malware to a system, you can skip this entire process of gaining access, maintaining access, and things like that, because the malware is capable of opening another port, right? So the result that we saw, where port number 21 was open, port number 22 was open, the malware is capable of port opening, say, port number 1234 and connecting it to your malicious server, right? So that is an easier approach. That is a relatively simpler approach, so that you can skip all of those steps, right? Uh, okay, how do we get or copy specific malware file to the server? One is this method, wget, right? Secondly, host it somewhere, send it as a link to the employees in the organization, the computer that you are trying to hack, or the user that is using that particular computer. He or she sees a lucrative email, high chances that they will click on it, right? And as soon as they click on the attachment, maybe a PDF, maybe something of that sort, they can, you know, uh, download the malware onto their system, and it can install itself automatically, right? And we are going
Uh,
to see that in the, yeah, tell me.
Arun, the wget command works only if this current server where we have logged in has access to or connectivity to the server where the file is stored,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So in that case, how do we in real world environment that there will be a connectivity between the server where we have stored the malware file and the file where we have the
Internet.
server?
Everything is connected via internet at the end of the day, right? So
Okay,
wget command is going to work very easily in that case. And
okay.
creating your malicious server and hosting these kinds of malware, it's not very hard. Just give me a I think I, need to check on that command, but it goes something like python -m http.server. See, it was as easy as this. Now, python-m http.server, it is serving on 0000 port 8000, right? So my local host is now exposed. So if I go onto a browser and I type in localhost port number 8000, see, this is my entire directory, right? So I can go on to say profiles and things like that. See, it is downloading index.profile. If I click on bash rc original, it is downloading bash rc original, right? So this is how you can host it. Now, this was my local host that was being exposed, but if it would have been, the port forwarded, that is the service that we use in order to expose our local host to the internet via an IP address, it would have been like very much simpler in that case. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. And as we can see that all of this activity was logged as well. So yeah, we need to stop this. Suggesting that if you are running this command that I just showed, python -m http server on a Windows laptop or a Linux laptop, check for the services after you are done with it, because if it is running on the public internet, it keeps you vulnerable to an exposed, operating system. Just check it through when you are done with it. Okay. Now, what is ethical hacking? Ethical hacking involves the use of hacking tools, tricks, and techniques to identify vulnerabilities and ensure system security. Right? So it focuses on stimulating the techniques used by attackers to verify the existence of exploitable vulnerabilities in a system security. Right? Usually, what the main concept of ethical hacking is, you will be testing a system rather than hacking a system. Right? So when you test this system and you find vulnerabilities, you will be exploiting it. Yes, that's not an issue, but also you will be reporting it to a team that is capable of solving that particular issue. It can be the development team, it can be the blue team, whatever it might be. And that makes you an ethical hacker at the end of it. Ethical hackers perform security assessments for an organization with the permission of the concerned authorities. Now, why ethical hacking is necessary? To beat a hacker, you need to think like one. This is something that we have heard in sitcoms, and it's actually a line from Google itself. So, yeah, ethical hacking is necessary as it allows for counter attacks against malicious hackers, right? So, if me as a penetration tester testing an application, I find vulnerabilities such as what do you call it? Open port, right? Let's just say that FTP port is not encrypted, right? Before someone else exploits it, I can just simply, tell the team to implement a certificate-based authentication or an encrypted channel, or do not expose the FTP port at all. Right? These are the things that I can suggest to the system, and before any legitimate hacker tries to hack into the system, I secure that. I help secure that system. Now, reasons why organizations recruit ethical hackers, very much self-explanatory here: to prevent hackers from gaining access, to uncover vulnerabilities, to analyze and strengthen an organization's security, to provide adequate preventive measures and avoid security breaches, like safeguarding, hardening, whatever it might be. These are the things that we all know. Okay. Why ethical hacking is necessary? So ethical hackers try to answer the following questions. What can an intruder see on the target system? These are the things that these are this is the answer is taken from the reconnaissance and scanning phase. Right? What can an intruder do with that information? Gain access, maintain access. Does anyone at the target organization notice the intruder's attempts, reconnaissance, and covering track phases? Right? These are all of the things that ethical hackers try to do in a particular organization. Scopes and limitations of ethical hacking. Okay. What is the scope? Ethical hacking is a crucial component of risk assessment, auditing, counter fraud, and information security best practices. Right. So this entire process of not exactly ethical hacking, it must say penetration testing or vulnerability analysis, penetration testing, or VAPT as we call it. This is the main thing that ethical hackers do at the end of the day. So VAPT is used in order to audit a particular company. It is used to have a risk assessment report, right? These are all of the things that a VAPT report is used for, to create a baseline to check if the company is compliant to laws, right? Capable of running these softwares which requires like a lot of hardening, right? These are the things that we look into. It is used to identify risk and highlight remedial actions. It also reduces ICT costs by resolving the vulnerabilities. Limitations. Unless the business already knows what they are looking for and why they are hiring an outside vendor to hack systems in the first place, chances are there would not be much to gain from the experience, right? So if the business already knows, you know, what they are looking for, or they know that, oh, okay, I have used this vulnerable package, but this is the most that I could have used it at that point of time because my application is vulnerable. Application is dependent on that particular package, for example, right? In such an hostile environment where there's a developers conflict, there is a lot of upper management conflict, right? These are the places that you will not gain much experience from. An ethical hacker can only help organizations to better understand its security system. It is up to the organization to place the right safeguards on the network. Skills, what are the skills that we require to term ourselves as an ethical hacker? In-depth knowledge of major operating systems such as Windows, Unix, Linux, and Macintosh. In-depth knowledge of networking, right? Switches, hubs, routers, right? Configuration of these. Computer expert, adept at technical domains. So ideally, there should be one technical domain that you should be familiar with. Personally, I am familiar with the technical domain of cloud architecture, cloud architecting, cloud networking, and Kubernetes and things like that. But it's what I've seen from experience. It's very much, you know, it becomes more efficient if you are coming from a development background, right? Even yeah, even if you are coming from a non-technical background, that is completely fine. But these things actually help because you know a lot of things already. Knowledgeable about security areas, highly technical knowledge for launching sophisticated attacks. Trust me that no matter how daunting that it might sound, it's as simple as reading every day, right? So the first thing that not I would say ethical hackers do, the security professionals and technical people do, is start reading the latest trends in their particular field, right? So if you're a Python developer, the first thing that you would do in when you wake up is read about any new packages or any new ML packages that are in the market right now or anything of that sort. What we do is we start going through the news for recent cyber attacks, any new vulnerability that has been patched, any new vulnerability that has been published. These are the things that we look into. And trust me when I say it, that all of this is all of the news that we see about ransomware, about malware attacks and things like that. It just happens because one employee decided to open a mail which was clearly flagged as a phishing email. Okay. It becomes very, very simple as that. Right? Someone left their ID card, someone left a diary at a coffee place. This is how like real life hacks are happening as well. Right. I would suggest y'all, if you are into podcasts, because this is something that I listen to every morning. It's called the Cybersecurity Podcast. Or there's another podcast by a person called Alan Alford. You can also look into that. Okay. Or there's another one called Cybersecurity Simplified. Right. So if you are into podcasts and into cybersecurity, you can go listen to these podcasts whenever you're free. Okay. What are the non-technical skills? Ability to learn, obviously. Strong work ethics and good problem solving and communication skills. Why is job ethics? Is because you will see a lot of information with your eyes, right? Maybe you are trying to access into a system and you have access into that particular system's, files which were, confidential, right? So you have to be ethical to yourself and not use those files to your benefit or anything of that sort. Committed to the organization's security policies, awareness of local standards and laws. Right. Me being in India, the laws that I need to be familiar with is PCI DSS for payment cards, NIST, ISO 27001. When the Indian Data Protection Bill is passed, that is something that I will need to be familiar as well. So yeah, okay. Information security controls as information assurance. Right. This is the part that assures that integrity, availability, confidentiality, and authenticity is maintained, right? Some of the processes that help in us achieving this information assurance is developing a local policy, procedure, and guidance that all of the data that will be stored on these servers are authentic. It comes from legitimate sources, like cite the sources where it is coming from, and so on. Designing network and user authentication strategies, right? A user will be using OTPs in order to sign in. The database will be segregated in such a way that this user, being just a user, should be able to access this data. This user, being an administrator, should be able to access this data along with an extra set of data, right? So that is the segregation that we do. Network and user authentication strategies. Identifying network vulnerabilities and threats, identifying problems and resource requirements, creating plans for identified resource requirements, applying appropriate information assurance controls, certification and accreditation. Certification for organizations is a major deal because that is what shows that that particular organization has been compliant to local laws or any standard that another company might be looking for. People usually go for SOC 2, they go for NIST, ISO 27001, right? These are all of the things that they go through. Providing information assurance training. So training your employees also comes in the field of ethical hacking, because training is also a crucial part of it in organizations. The first thing that you do after entering an organization is a security training. Do not click on spam email, do not open malicious websites, and so on. Defense in depth. This is the concept that we use where we need to secure a system and make it inaccessible by malicious actors like hackers and things like that. So what do? We defend that entire system in depth. What do I mean by that? Every operating system has, for example, what do you call it? It has a login screen, right? Then it has folders. Then it has the files inside of them. Let's say, for example, they have PDF files inside of them, and inside that PDF file, there's data, right? Now, there's a password on the operating system that you need to put. I can even protect the folder where you need to enter a password in order to access that folder. I can also put a password on the PDF file, right? You need to enter a password on the PDF file to enter the PDF file, and the data inside of the PDF file will be written in a ciphertext or an encrypted text that you need to decode in order to get the data, right? What did I do right here? I had multiple layers of security, right? That is defense in depth. Defense in depth is a security strategy in which several protection layers are placed throughout an information, right? First comes policies, physical layers, perimeters, the network layers, internal network, VLANs, hosting, and things like that. Host, passwords, uh, OTPs, right? Applications, once again, username, password, OTP, and finally the data which is encrypted, right? This is a defense in-depth approach. Now, risk. Risk is nothing but the probability of a vulnerability becoming a reality, right? Or a vulnerability being exploited. So risk levels refers to the degree of uncertainty or expectation that an adverse event may cause damage to the system, right? So it refers to a risk matrix. A risk matrix is nothing but a scale that is calculating the probability, likelihood, and consequences of the impact, right? So let's say, for example, if a vulnerability is there, right, and the vulnerability is available out on the internet from your web application, right? So the probability is high. Likelihood is, say, the vulnerability that is exploited is a very simple vulnerability, right? Maybe the heartbleed, for example. So if it's a very simple vulnerability and it's available on the internet, the probability and likelihood are very high. Now, what happens is, as a consequence of which, you just get access to a data pool that contains heavily encrypted data that nothing, and all of those data are public data. So anything that is stolen from that server does not affect me because it's public data at the end of the day. So consequence is low, right? Even if probability is high, likelihood is high, and consequences are low, that makes it a medium level vulnerability, right? If the probability was low, the probability was very low, likelihood was very low, and consequences of impact is very, very high, right? Even that makes it a medium level vulnerability. It's not a high vulnerability, right? So this is what we actually focus on. See, insignificant. So these are the consequences. This is the probability, and this is the likelihood, right? Probability 61 to 80%, high probability, but the data loss is insignificant. Hence, it is a low vulnerability, low risk, right? Whereas 1 to 2% of probability and very low likelihood, but the consequences are very severe, right? So it's a high, right? So the risk levels, extreme or high, should be the first priority. Immediate measures should be taken to combat risk. Identify and improve controls to reduce risk, right? Medium, no urgent action is required, but resolve it as soon as possible after you are done with the high level risks. And low, take preventive steps to mitigate the effects of the risk. That's it. Now, risk is nothing but a mathematical equation of threats multiplied by vulnerabilities multiplied by impact, right? Threat is can be defined by the probability, likelihood, risk, whatever it might be. Vulnerability has a score in itself that we call CVSS score. So if you go on to Google and just type in CVSS, you'll get a, I'll paste it on chat as well. Keep this handy. So this is a calculator that, you know, gives in risk its numerical value, right? For example, if I see CVVSFTPD, right? This is a common vulnerability. Each vulnerability is going to have a page like this on CVE details, and each vulnerability is going to have a score as well, right? So see, score 5, score 5, score 5, right? This goes from 1 to 10. Higher the score, the riskier it is. And finally, asset value, impact or asset value. So asset value is nothing but a singular piece of data getting out of your organization. This is defined by laws, this is defined by compliances and so on, right? So yeah, that would be it for today. In the next part, we'll be going through the phases and we'll be going through the calculator, which will be the end of the module. Fine. Any questions, anyone?
Yes, I wanted to ask if this course was a general cybersecurity training or it's just the CEH.
So this is like we are following the concept of CEH for the theoretical part right here. But for the other parts, such as industry applications, projects, and things like that, we'll be following everything that is currently happening in the industry, right? So for theoretical part, because at the end of the day, we have to qualify for an examination, right? So for the theoretical part of it, we are following CEH and CompTIA Security Plus. For the practical part of it, we will be doing everything that is available on the industry standards list.
Okay.
Yeah. Ultimately, the goal is, like you have to be proficient in the theoretical part in order to ace an interview or something like that. But also you need to have the knowledge that will help you in the industry. Nothing that is, part of labs which are available on the internet, which are not actually related to what happens in the industry, right? So that's what we'll be looking into.
Okay, sir.
Arun, how do we set up labs? You said we have to use some online platform, right?
No, for online platform, we'll be using TryHackMe. TryHackMe is capture the flag platform. So we'll be looking into that. But for setup of labs on your local computer, we'll be using virtual machines. So we'll be going through the entire process of setting up labs in itself.
Okay, great. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Assume there's no more questions. Fine then. Then that would be it for today. Thank you so much for joining, guys. Have a great rest of the day. And thank you so much.